daisies and unicorns, and we're back in 2023. Steve, you're back, and I'm back.
We are back.
We're back together.
Back. I'm trying to bring the energy to my voice. Back. 2023.
Right.
I think this is the first time I've spoken that year out loud to the universe and to all of the podcasting listeners that will be magnetized towards the podcast.
They're going to be automatically drawn in by the sounds of our voices.
Yeah. So welcome back, everyone.
Yeah.
Season 8.
Season 8. It's crazy, Season 8.
Which I do believe in our numerical study.
Yeah.
That 8, turned on its side is the symbol of infinity.
That's right. So this could go on forever.
This is the song that never ends.
Is that a copyrighted song, or is that something that we could sing on air?
I don't know. I'm having PTSD moments of flashbacks to Barney.
Yep. Because this is the episode that never ends.
And some people, depending on the generation that they come from, might be thinking Barney Fife.
Right.
And other people could be thinking of the big purple dinosaur. Yeah.
Right. Yep. The big purple dinosaur.
Yeah.
That's. I mean, I'm familiar with both, but when you say Barney, I was thinking dinosaur.
Well, because in context, we were singing a song that would have been
more fitting towards that era.
Yeah. Yeah. Watched, by many people, time and time again. On an old standard tape classic called the VHS.
Yeah, and I think, what's her name? Selena Gomez was on Barney as one of the kids. So.
Did you see her documentary on her?
I did not. Was it on Apple?
No.
Which one was that? HBO?
No, I thought it was Netflix, but maybe it was HBO. I don't know. We watched it one Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did she talk about her times on the Barney show?
No, she did not. She talked about her mental health and all of the struggles.
Oh, yeah.
The struggle is real.
Yeah, I just looked at the song that doesn't end, or the song that never ends. There was a song by Sherry Lewis in 1992. So was it really only that long that song's been around?
No.
I just figured that, maybe that's like one of the more well-known. I don't even know. I don't know why that would come up.
Well, and we were 4 minutes in, and there is the complete confession of everything this podcast is about.
Right.
There is just so much we don't know.
There's so much we don't know. Yeah, it's a confession that we're okay with.
Yeah, and if now if you're a person who takes on great, you have great formation within your person that knowing a lot matters to you, then this isn't the podcast to listen to. Unless you just like screaming at whatever device you're listening on and be like, yeah, you guys are idiots. Of course it's this and this and this and this and this. And then to that I say, touche. I'm glad you feel good about you.
Yeah, but even the Wikipedia article says that the song that doesn't end, also referred to as the song that never ends,
so I'm guessing
appeared in an album by the puppeteer Sherry Lewis in Lamb Chop.
Yes, I was just going to throw that out there. Sherry Lewis is like the voice of Lamb Chop in the sock puppet Lamb Chop.
Yeah.
And she had this really weird voice that she did with the little Lamb Chop.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
Released through a 1988 home video. It's a single verse long song written in an infinite loop motif in a march style, such that it naturally flows in a symmetrical fashion, repeating the same verse over and over. It is still a very popular tune, typically sung during the long car rides.
Well, and so the other thing that speaks to in its repetitive style in a marching beat is it could also be sung in a round.
Right.
Which I think rounds are okay with two people, but rounds get interesting when you add the third to fifth person. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is, I mean, it's the referent originally written was the song that doesn't end, but I'm always familiar with the song that never ends. So apparently that was a later addition by people. So
doesn't or never doesn't matter because it's the same amount of syllables that fit within the syncopation of what's being sung.
And they're both negatives, so never doesn't.
Right. Yeah.
Contractions there.
So we're not like shifting the meaning.
Right.
You know, totally different from unforeseen kiss versus sloppy wet kiss.
Oh no, we're going to get into that.
No, we're not.
Oh man.
Thank you, David Crowder, for bringing John Mark McMillan to the masses and gaining permission to change the words.
Right. And why would he say yes to changing those words, do you think? Just because it was Crowder and Crowder had some popularity and he thought...
Follow the money, man. You just have to follow the money. You know, these top 10 CCLI songs for people who are adverse to knowing anything about the world.
Yeah.
It's like BMI or ASCAP, which is royalty-based. People charge fees to people who are performers for using copyrighted material. All the money goes into a pool, and then based on the play, then the pool is paid out to the original artists. That's BMI and ASCAP.
Yeah.
And so as things came along with Christian contemporary music, then CCLI, which is Christian Contemporary License Incorporated, then churches around the world, not just in the U.S., wake up, Western Church. You're not the only church around. So churches worldwide, then to be able to perform and play the music on Sundays in the contemporary and pre-contemporary music genres, then pay a fee in based on the amount of people that attend the church. So churches that are under, I don't know, I think it's under 99 members or under 99 in attending. Actually, there's a difference between attendance roll, even on how that all reads in the legalese. But depending on that, depends on how much you pay in annually. And then they give you a number that shows that as you are licensed with that you could be able to perform these songs publicly. And there's then different laws and rules about whether it's performed publicly live, on location, not on location, in affiliation with, because you got camps, you have retreats, stuff like that.
And then you have streaming licenses on top of that.
And then streaming licenses go on top of that. And then it's one-time streams versus, and live stream versus click. Crazy.
Yeah, but speaking of Crowder,
we
just
were
just an interesting.
You should
tidbit.
never meet your heroes.
Right.
Go ahead.
Not even that, but it was interesting. I heard him talk, and the Guardians of the Galaxy did a Christmas special. Are you aware of this?
I'm aware, but I did not watch it.
I didn't watch it either, but I found it interesting that. So apparently Kevin Bacon the Guardians of the Galaxy are going to find Kevin Bacon in this.
Okay.
Kevin Bacon's house in the Guardians of the Galaxy's Christmas special is actually Crowder's house.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So they filmed that piece of it at Crowder's house.
So, what? Another interesting thing. Do you know why Kevin Bacon is the person that they were going to?
No.
From the first volume, first episode, Chris Pratt's character says, and talks about Kevin Bacon coming into a town where people didn't dance, and he references Kevin Bacon in the first episode.
So that's the Footloose, yeah?
Yeah.
That's the movie?
Yeah, it was Footloose. Which I've actually recently, getting back to the 80s, I've watched both the original and the newer release of Footloose. It's got a good soundtrack, makes sense. Pretty sure I told Amy the other day, though, officially, our lower level remodel kitchen bathroom thing renovation that's going on at the house. Yeah. Which, if you you know how they say you got to do something for at least 21 days before it starts to become a habit? I've been working on this for 90 days and it's still not a habit that I want to have. But then I take it in context and I'm like, how could 90 days feel like 9 months? And so anyway, long story short, but I'm convinced that Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick, we built this city on rock and roll. Yeah. Top Gun. I just throw Top Gun. I don't know. There's something about that. Gets me, and I'm like, all right.
The Highway to the Danger Zone. That was all. I think that was also the one.
Danger Zone. Right. Yeah. So, but Footloose, I'm actually in this thing now where the first time I saw the second Footloose, I was typical I'm anti-remake anyway. Yeah. And so then it was one of those things where I was like, it was worth watching just to see the difference. But the guy who plays in Maverick Top Gun that plays Goose's son is in Footloose playing Wilmer or Wilbur or whatever his name is. The guy who's challenged dancing. Yeah. He's also the lead character in The Offer, Tillman. And so, it's just interesting. And now, because the second one is more country dance-based and stuff, I like the country music, and it's got some updated beats and stuff. So I'm like, but Kevin, I don't know, the lead players just aren't as good as Kevin and Ariel in the first one. Yeah. But the soundtrack, if you have it going and you're not watching it, anyway. And then, somebody made some movie called White Men Can't Jump. Yeah. Seems
Woody Harrelson and what's his name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Wesley Snipes.
This White Man Can't Dance. And so which we've actually banned my dance moves on the podcast for those who watch it on YouTube.
That was season 1. You'd made that promise.
Yeah.
Never gonna dance.
Not gonna do that. Don't do that. I have a list of things I'm not supposed to do. And so, that's added to it.
Yep. Not dancing unless the aliens come in to speak to you first and demand it. Any alien sightings or visits since the in between these seasons?
Now, have you in your prayer / meditation ever practiced engaging with the actual entity that we would call God?
Yes. I mean, engaged in like,
I'm not saying like so. So Hillary McBride,
yeah.
who is a top-rated, accomplished doctor, psychologist, specializes in body trauma,
Right.
who was in past years had been on the liturgists.
Mm-hmm.
So she had a meditation, and it was probably one of the first times that I was able to, in meditation, be able to engage with the divine in like a meditative state of actual, like encountering the entity. And so now this is fleeting.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not making any, like, most of the shit I say is made up.
Right.
I mean, can we just put a Coble disclaimer on this? Like, if you got into 16, you're like, you know what? This is actually getting somewhere faster than these guys usually move. And so, yeah, but no, I'm not making this up.
Right.
So anyway, I have the quick answer for the quick thinkers out there
Yeah.
who are wondering. No, really, we're wondering about the aliens right now. Okay, the quick answer, no alien encounters.
All right.
No, but I have had some, like, dream state engagements with the unseen deity. It's a really bright
that's
light.
Interesting.
Yeah. And yeah, kind of a conversation back and forth. And we've talked about your dream sleep, which is non-existent.
I'm sure it's there somewhere. It's just not. It doesn't exist for me.
We wonder why Phil seems tired. It's because he never reaches REM.
Yeah. It's probably it.
Yeah. But yeah. So yeah, we're somewhere in the range of 4 or 5 weeks we've been off the air.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Because it was December, or it was before Christmas, so.
Yeah, and I mean, if I was going to be truly transparent, I would say that it's been a tiring 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. It's just like when you get into holidays and, and expectations and all that stuff, and yeah, and projects that you're just really not used to, and so I'm like, this is the first time in 3 months that I'll have been to the studio twice in a week. And last week was the first time that I was there. No, this week, because I actually started keeping a diary at the studio so I could check in with myself about what things I was going to do that didn't get done.
Right.
And so the last time I was there was my birthday on January 5th.
Right.
And so then it's like, holy cow, it's been 2 more weeks and stuff. But fair shake. If I didn't want to do the work at the house,
Yeah.
we'd find somebody else to do the work. I'm just such a tightwad that I'm like, if I can do the work, why shouldn't I do the work? And why spend 3 times the money to have somebody else do it just because I don't want to do it?
Sure.
Except for my attitude. Except how much money's worth my attitude? Mm-hmm. Or how much? Like, is there a dollar amount? I'm pretty sure that if I have a bad attitude, if it's not going to be about something, it'll be about something else, right? I mean, it's just shifting the parameter of a bad attitude. And me saying bad attitude, once again, that's just me being just outwardly, blatantly saying, this is how I feel.
Yeah.
But I really don't feel that way, really. I think it's just a reason to bitch.
Sure.
Gripe. So But now the plumbing's done, the electric's done. Now I'm into finish work.
That's progress.
Oh my gosh, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. So how much is left? I mean, how many man hours? I mean, or is this going to be just a constant project after project?
Well, I'm sure there's more projects to come, but yeah.
Yeah.
What I was actually thinking about was one thing that I really like about having the house project and to be doing the house project is I really enjoy the time that it gives me to cook. I've made some really good meals in the last 90 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. I.e., that's why like any idea of dropping weight has just not occurred. So if you had a New Year's resolution to lose weight, you wouldn't want to be hanging around with me because I made a mushroom, like a Japanese twist on a mushroom soup last night that blew my mind, man.
Wow.
Shiitake mushrooms mixed in with these other button mushrooms and then these other yellow florally mushrooms and chopped up green onion. Started it out with the chicken broth. And then I had canned water chestnut. I threw that in there.
Yeah.
And then with some ginger and then took it just to the point so you kind of got this pepper, black pepper, white pepper, and mushrooms with onion soup. It is fantastic. I don't even like soup.
Yeah.
Then I figured it out last night as I'm eating my second bowl of soup. What I'm convinced is I don't like soup that comes out of a can, and I don't like soup that other people make.
Yeah.
But apparently, but it was really good. So then I tried it two ways because I got some Korean barbecue sauce.
Yeah.
So I just squirted some of that over the top. And then the second time through, I got some low sodium soy sauce.
There is low sodium soy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and shook that on there. And I'm like, that's still not kind of. I think, which I do have a bottle of eel sauce, and so I was like, but man, if it do that soup with some sushi, oh, so good. But
some wasabi paste or something.
Oh, dude, you know what? There you go. Yeah. And I got pickled ginger too.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just
perfect.
Yeah.
Do you make your own sushi?
No.
I've never tried it before, but
I've been at a party where sushi's been made.
Yeah. They have like all kinds of like instruments on I think on the Amazon that you can pull up and make your own sushi. It has your own, you put your sticky rice down, you put that, and then you roll it up, and there you go.
Yeah.
But I've never tried it.
Yeah. Me either.
But, I mean, I like sushi, so.
Oh, I do too. And what I found is that I have to eat myself like so full that I'm about sick. And then I'm still hungry later.
Yeah.
But
I mean, with Chinese food, Asian food, like there's something about like it fills you quick, but it also you get hungry quicker to me.
Right.
Like so, I mean, we tried out a new Chinese restaurant. I think it was over on Irving Park, and it was the same thing. Like you eat like, oh, like that's made. I mean, like I'm so full, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, like now I'm not full, and I probably shouldn't eat anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And I think, the older you get, everybody's getting older, but
every day
as you progress in your getting older stages, man, I don't have an appetite, but I'm not getting skinny.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bad place to be.
Yeah. Yeah, because then there's the you don't eat. I mean, this is my problem. So, like I can do this, I don't eat breakfast or I'll eat something small for lunch or whatever, but then it's like dinner, then I'll cram everything in.
Yeah.
And it's like that's not always the most helpful either. So, or then dessert too.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Whatever. I mean, I haven't made a push towards like trying to eat healthy either. I don't. Usually, I mean, I don't save it for hey the new year. Let's make a push for health. Like, yeah. People, and a big trend, is always, they, especially right now, like dry January.
Mm-hmm.
People are like, oh, I got to go dry because usually December people are overindulging. Dry January kind of flush everything out. I'm like, nah. no dry January for me either.
Oh, man. Yeah. No dry January for Phil.
No.
Phil's keeping his January wet,
right,
and neat.
Yeah, it's gotta be wet and neat.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
So what about you? Any it's been 5 weeks. Any highlights?
Highlights. We've got some new roommates living in the house. So
all right.
It's always fun. I mean, we typically have people in and out of here anyways. So transitional space and rooms, in the house here. So let people get back on their feet, kind of thing. The difference here is that we have a language barrier, right? So they're
wow.
Colombians who are here, and so now they're, like we have to use a Google Translate most of the time, and it's like, yeah, like what are you saying? What am I? You don't know what I'm saying, So that's a little bit of a difference from the people that we've had in the house before.
Yeah,
is we have never had a language barrier issue. So
yeah.
So
to our listeners, then. Why don't you just kind of explain? You've got like multiple bedroom, like in Chicago, we've talked about 2 flats before, and multifamily, live in 2 flats, parking issues. We've talked about that.
Right.
We just got our first, or probably second accumulation of snow. It's January 25th, and so I mean, like. Compared to 3 years ago,
right.
I mean, we haven't had the snow. No dibs chairs have been out so far this year.
No, I mean, in last season it was late, right?
Yeah.
So we had 0 snow in December up until that time, and then January we had a couple of big snows. February, I think there might have been one in March, which is usually the case. Like it kind of just diminishes towards that.
Sure.
This season we had like one in December, not much accumulation.
Yeah.
And then it dropped, I think Sunday it snowed, but there was nothing, didn't stick.
Nothing stuck.
It snowed for pretty much all day, but it didn't stick.
Yeah.
The ground apparently was too warm. So
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so multi-bedroom house, 2-story, and there may be some people like you and I understand what you're talking about.
Right.
But basically you open your home.
Right.
And so
yeah, I mean there are a total of 7 bedrooms in this place.
All right.
And so Heather and I sleep in the same bedroom. So we are not a couple who splits that up.
And you have options.
Right. And we have options.
So you could sleep in a different bedroom every night of the week on rotation.
Yeah.
And if you had the 7 beds set up with 7 sets of linens, you could rotate through and each set of linens would only have been slept in 4 nights, and you'd go through a whole month, and after 4 nights of sleeping on your linens, you wouldn't
Right.
have to change them out.
No. Might be a good plan. Yeah, so we're with that. I mean, and so when our daughter moved out like 2 years ago, then it was just Heather and I and Tyson, our son. So he's got a bedroom all on his own. So
2 out of 7 being used
Right.
consistently.
And so then at that point, then we're like, yeah, so we'll make sure. I mean, when people drop into Chicago, we'll have a spare bedroom, making sure that it's always available. Heather turned one of the bedrooms into her office. I already had, one of the bedrooms is the pastor's office, so
Yeah.
that's kind of where mine was, anyways. We can still fit people in there to sleep.
Yeah.
Heather took her office away, turned it into one of the bedrooms. So we've had people kind of in those transitional spaces,
Sure.
pretty much since we've lived here.
Yeah.
There's probably, I think, maybe 6 months would be the longest we didn't have, maybe less, that we didn't have somebody living there.
So it's an open practice for you and your family to have people that you don't know at some level. Like you get introduced to people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like even in the neighborhood,
Right.
or whether it's Heather works in a local school system, but I mean, people know that, hey, if there's a person who's in transition, and you guys basically vet them by conversation, interview.
Yeah, so the most random one, I would say, that we did, there was this is when we had a dual church, right? We had Concordia, we had here, and a UIC student had just walked by one day.
What's UIC?
University of Illinois.
All right.
And this is like in like the central part of the city.
Okay.
So medical district is where he was going to school.
Okay.
And he had walked in and was like, hey, like, I don't know why I'm stopping here, but this is my situation. I'm a student here. He was in a doctoral program. He was getting removed from his housing part. And he's like, I can't move in, I can't go to the student housing yet until, I don't know, it was a couple of months. Like, I need, can you help me find some place to live?
And you're like, hey, do you want to take a look at a bedroom that we have and you could live here?
Right. So I was like, and I didn't mention it to him before. I was like, hey, like, yeah, let's talk about this, because he still had, a couple of days. I think it was maybe a week until he had to move out of where he was at.
Yeah.
And I was like, so I met him again, and I was like, hey, so I talked to my wife, like, we do have a bedroom. He's like, really? Like, yeah, I mean, why don't you come over? Like, let's eat lunch together. You can meet my wife. I think we had both kids living here at the time.
Probably.
And his name was Max. He was from one of those, there's a place in Africa, not Sierra Leone, but somewhere near there.
Okay.
I can't remember the name of it right now. Heather probably would, but
so an African national,
right,
who's come to Chicago,
right, and he was a doctoral in the doctoral program at UIC
to become a doctor.
Not a doctor. He wanted to do economics, so he was going to be doing health economics.
So he was going to have a PhD in health economics.
Right, which I'm sure probably by this point in time he is. So he's a doctor of something. Dr. Max. Right.
All right.
But so it ended up like we met him, talked about his family, and he was a really easy guy. I mean, he would sometimes have to stay late or do whatever work there. He would come home, go to his bed and sleep, wake up, then and go to back to school. I
Yeah.
mean, so he was a really easy roommate.
Yeah.
But not all roommates have been equal
Yeah.
in that manner.
And so when you say transition, now is this something where, a lot of people when they think about, oh, I've got a house and it's got this much room, and so this could be, like a really good way for me to make some income. Like when you're talking about transition, you're not charging rent to these people.
So that's the part about it when we talk, because they're always like, well, how much is rent? And I'm like, well, we don't charge rent. Like, we're not trying to make money off of you.
Does that freak people out?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, but like we seem like it seems like we're taking advantage. Like, no, I mean, like, this is the part. They're like, we're not intending for you to stay here forever. Like, that's why we call it transitional too.
Get your feet on the ground.
All right, get your feet on the ground, save up for what you need to save up for.
Yeah.
Do your thing and then go. I mean, and then you can find your way.
Yeah.
So that's always the way that we preface it. Hey, let's do you're saying you need a month? Well, let's plan for 2 just in case, or whatever it might be.
So you do talk the exit strategy
Mm-hmm.
when you sit down to talk about. It's just not like, hey, come flop here, and then
Right.
2 years later you're like, well, we were thinking it was going to be 60 days, and now 24 months later.
Right. Yeah, and that's usually the intentional way of like, hey, so let's reevaluate. Let's talk about this. Let's see what the plan is.
Yeah.
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 So opening those conversations and still saying, I mean, so that's kind of the way that it's been. We've had, I think, maybe the longest person lived here probably a year.
Yeah.
There was a teenager who was living here. She was a young mom.
Yep.
She had dropped out of high school at that point, had a kid, was working, that kind of stuff. I mean, that one was challenging because sometimes we would end up being babysitters too. So,
sure. Yeah.
And that was a little bit like, all right, like, we're going to have to find some, other ways of, doing this as well. So,
yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, and you and Heather both are in different seasons. Like that situation of transition worked out for that season.
Right.
Where, when I take a look, even in the last 3 years, like, even your social and local involvement, for both of you is on a totally different level than it was 3.5 to 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's just the part of in pursuit of community and being in a community and being a part of a community. It just takes time.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I just wanted to give people context.
Oh, yeah.
Because,
Yeah, that's good to know.
when we're, you and I throw that around because
Because you're familiar with
I-
it already.
I-
so.
I've met several transitional roommates of yours over the past 8 or how many ever years it's been.
Right.
And so when you mention different people, I'm like, oh yeah, I never met Max.
Yeah.
So I knew that both of your kids were here when Max was here because both of your kids were here when I moved to Chicagoland.
Right.
And but it could be blowing some people's minds right now when they're like, you do what?
Right. Which is would be a pretty common reaction. And I'm not like, sometimes our kids haven't always been like super comfortable either. Like, do we have to like be, I mean, and that's like, we're trying to get them comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Sure.
So, if that makes sense.
That's a parenting priority for you.
Right.
And Heather. Yeah.
Right. It's going to be uncomfortable. But, and I think we try to balance it out with the reason why. Like, I mean, so there are people who need
Sure.
a little bit of space,
Yeah.
to be able to figure out what is the next part.
Yeah. Now, here's another thing that I will just throw out to our listeners for them to freak out about.
Yeah.
You have one full bathroom
Yeah.
for 7 bedrooms.
That is I would say the worst part about it.
The greatest challenge, as far as you're concerned, the greatest challenge to the idea of bringing in someone who is in a transitional space in their life,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, and by the way,
Yeah.
now there's a half bath, so there's a sink
Right.
and
A toilet.
a toilet,
That's it.
but there's only one full bathroom, which, in context, may not be larger than 8 by 8.
Yeah, probably not.
Right. And
it always boggles my mind, like when they built the house. I mean, this is probably 100, like 100+ year old house. And they didn't think like, oh, we're going to put 7 bedrooms in this place. And, oh, yeah, we'll put in one bathroom, like one full like bathroom.
right.
What? Like, what was going through your head?
Well, and vanity isn't on like the diminished scale. I mean, people, I mean, you got to get ready for your day.
Yeah.
And if you got 7 bedrooms,
Right.
now granted, I mean, they're shifted spaces and lots of different things going on and all of that. So if you want to, maybe you're at the point of the podcast and you're like, did I really just hear what I heard? Then I would say stop right now and rewind, go back about 15 to 17 minutes, and you can listen to it all over again.
You can.
The story's not going to change. We've laid this truth down in its tracks, and this is this is the deal. And so, so interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, and to me, like it's become a little bit more normal. I mean, like the people living here now, there's a high school student and his mom, and she works 3rd shift. So she's sleeping a lot during the day. She's at work, at night I think she leaves the house at like 10 at night, gets home at like 7 or 8 in the morning. And then she's like heading to bed, right? So, there's that. I mean, and I don't envy 3rd shift. I had to work 3rd shift, like a long time ago before I, was a pastor and that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I realize like 3rd shift, it messes with you. Like I couldn't do it for a long period of time. I think I was doing it for like a year, and like it messes with your head, with your body, all kinds of stuff. Like I don't think people are meant for it, but yet it's still there.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
factories, they do that still. Companies, yeah.
If you're a gold miner, you want to have your wash plant running 24 hours a day. You got to have somebody working through the night.
It's true.
Whether the sun's shining or not.
Right.
But if you're up in the Yukon or in Alaska during the summer, there's usually lots of sunshine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the biggest part is that one shower. You say, all right, so what's the schedule? So the high school kid, Heather gets up then at 6:30. She showers. She's getting ready. And then he's going to jump in because he's got to leave by 7:15.
Yeah.
Get to school. So there's that now. And then that's established. All right. So, I'm usually going to the gym, then taking Heather, usually dropping her off, going to the gym, that kind of stuff. So,
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So then you work out a schedule. It becomes part of the habit.
This is the ebb. This is the flow.
Right. But this too will also be temporary. I mean, they're not looking to stay here forever. They've got some more family possibly coming in. They were supposed to be here earlier, but some things have held up the other family members. Eventually they're going to try to, find a spot that's going to facilitate more family members. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, so I'm going to hyperleap on you. In regards to that, but I think it brings up a good point because some people are connecting the dots that aren't being spoken right now, and they're like, "Oh, this family's from Colombia."
Yeah.
So then we'll just, verbally slap everybody in the face. Yes, we are talking about someone who's immigrating
Right.
to the U.S.
Yeah.
When you said other family is coming,
Yeah.
it could be. I mean, like in my mind, I'm like having a hard time crossing the border, or is it, just being hung up with all the legalese of what's going on? So that's where my head is.
Mhm.
It's going to feel like a hyperleap, but I'm going to go,
No.
what is in any human's mind to create that there is an enemy of a nationality that's not like their own? And where I'm really going very directly
Yeah.
is Semitism
Mhm.
or anti-Semitism.
Mhm.
People who are against Jewish people.
Yeah.
There's been a really strong thread in the news in regards to the uprising
Mhm.
of whether it in if you do need a reference point, I think it's in season 2 or 3. We have an article that we did on nationalism
Mhm.
and how nationalism can play and can affect what goes on governmentally as well as grassroots wise within a nation. There's no question that nationalism, not a nationalism of the U.S. is nationalistic, but around the world right now, there's an upsurgence. We go back to the January 6th, which have been, a year and... Has it only been a year or has it been 2?
I think it's 2 now.
Yeah, it's been 2 years ago in January where people broke into the capital of the U.S. Well, now Germany just basically shut down a very similar rush on their capital. And
Yep.
then I believe in South America, there's a country as well that just recently faced riots going on at the Capitol. There's a uptick, or there's a in like even the news that I've listened to has talked about a global rise of nationalism. And basically it's different people in different nations, but who are pro themselves and anti a lot of other people.
Yeah.
But what makes within humanity? Because there would be some people in the U.S. would say, "Well, Phil, why are you even helping a Colombian family in transition?"
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, and they don't even understand because what I get. So what was happening in their country? I'm like, well, we can
Colombia.
go, we can go through. Because it's the same. They're looking at whether it's Colombia, whether it's Argentina, these Central American countries. There are things that are happening to them and to their families that are leading them to say, I cannot live here anymore because if I do, I'm going to die, or my family's going to die.
Right.
And I don't think that we understand that level of threat. Because I don't know if we can understand violence. Our city's full of it, right? We have violence still.
Well,
we have shootings. We have gangs. We have...
If there's any town or city in the U.S., we're close at hand,
right,
to understanding, violence in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that, so when I say, like, hey, we've got, families that are here, that we have relationships with, that, and they're like, well, why are they doing, how can they seek asylum? And I'm like, well, we'll just give you a small glimpse of their life, once there was, one of the people in this relationship of families, her boyfriend stayed in Colombia and was murdered 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
By the gangs. Knocked on the door. He answered the door. 6 shots. I don't know, random. I mean, there's things
Sure.
that are, of course, happening. But like this is, I mean, you're looking at this level of threat that is upon their families.
So we were talking about Kevin Bacon earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and back in the day, it was always 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
And so at any point, you could look at some movie star and within 6 touch points. But basically, what you're saying is that you have a relationship with a family in transition,
Mm-hmm.
who then to that person's other connection.
Yeah.
So that your degree is to the transition family. Second degree
Mm-hmm.
is to another family who's from Colombia. So you're only 3 degrees away
Yeah.
from a gang hit
Yeah.
on a person who lost somebody that they love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have another guy who just came to Chicago less than a month ago from Guatemala. He worked in government, so he was part of. He worked some security. Then he was a police officer, and when that political power changed, then he was then on the in a position where people wanted to get him because he used to work for this political regime. Blah blah blah, and he had multiple death threats. One attempted.
Wow.
He didn't even leave at that point in time. He's like, all right, well, maybe the second one came up. All right, I got to go. So he leaves, goes to California, doesn't have a family system there, finds, a extended family in the Chicagoland. Hey,
Yeah.
I'll go out there. Jumps on a bus and comes.
Wow.
Right. So I mean, it's like so that there are those points in the family histories and the things that are happening there that they're like, I cannot continue to exist here, or else I won't probably be existing.
Yeah.
And that's where, so there's those levels of things that are happening, and when they're coming here, especially now, they're so overburdened within the city now. They're trying to find places, and they're trying to be able to put them places and take care of them because we're a sanctuary city. And I know that it becomes a political part of this too, because it's like these people or Texas and Florida are putting these people on a bus and sending them to sanctuary cities and saying, now, take a look at, the burden that you're going to have now. We've been overburdened. Now we're going to put it on you. And it's a political statement.
Sure. Yeah.
And what we're trying to be able to do here in our city is saying, what you're taking is political. We're putting it like the face of the people on. Instead of trying to make this political, we're trying to be able to say we care about people. And that's what I'm doing. That's what we're doing here, in this section of our city, is like we're putting human faces on this. I don't care about the politics. You deal with the politics somewhere else. I don't care.
Yeah.
We're going to deal with people and the people that are put in front of us. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so when you learn about the stories, when people are, there's another family that we have a relationship with that walked from Central America to Mexico, Mexico over the border. They swam across like large channels of water. They went 6 days without food. And they had small children. Well, one's small, one's in 5th grade or something. So when you're looking at this, like this is where they're trying to be able to get out from, under the cover of the And they're not finding. I mean, it's not like they're saying we're looking for riches. They're looking for a life. And they're coming here and they still don't have much, and they're not getting, but they're receiving help. And they're saying, we don't want you to just give us we want to work. But even that level, you can't, we're not even allowing them to work, and always in a legal capacity. Like, we're forcing these families, because you're like, all right, now you got to wait 6 months in order to give you a work visa so that you can, 6 months?
What are you going to do for 6 months?
All right, what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's true.
So, I don't know. So, there's all kinds of things that are kind of wrapped up in that. And for some that are listening, you're just hear, if you're trying to take it in a political way, I'm not talking politics right now.
Yeah.
Even though there are politics wrapped up in all of this.
Amy and I saw it's kind of a documentary, but it's about these two daughters, or two sisters is how I should frame it.
Yeah.
The one sister ended up swimming in the Olympics, and but it showed their fleeing the country and just crossing this ocean, and the amount of money that it took for them to flee because of what was happening within their country.
Yeah.
And all I would say is, if the thing is this is so energized emotionally that there's people may say in their minds, well, I don't want to watch that that right. show and stuff. But I come back to what I just don't get, and here's where I would invite conversation. I don't get how someone could hate someone of another nationality so that they would, people, I mean, there's people that have hatred for other nations that they would like to kill them.
Right.
Now, the context of what we were talking about was more people within their own country, but because of their political views or the people that they were aligned with, then killing other people. I mean, the idea of that, I think that's where in the U.S. we are very sheltered from this kind of, when I get on the metro, I don't wonder if there's a bomb going to go off.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't mean that it won't happen in the future. It doesn't mean that it hasn't happened in the past. But I navigate life pretty easily, not living in fear of sirens going off because bombs are coming inbound.
Right.
And in the Middle East, that's happening on a daily basis. And then you get into we haven't even touched anything on. But Chicago, in a legal sense, brought in a lot of Ukrainian refugees.
Yeah.
And so there's where words matter. Immigration, a refugee can be immigrating, but someone who's an immigrant doesn't necessarily mean that they're a refugee.
Yeah, right.
Right? So, I'm parsing this on purpose.
Yeah.
So that people who are listening would be like, just because someone's coming in country doesn't mean that they're coming non-documented or that they're coming through illegal channels.
Yeah.
But then what I would toss out there is something to think about. Like when you start talking about underground and the Underground Railroad and we look backward on history of black Americans who were coming out of the deep South,
Mm-hmm.
and even the change of life from going from deep South to the middle South to the north South. You haven't even gotten completely north yet,
Right.
but where the war of the land was in regards to that. And you think about the time, and again, when I see a person of color I don't look at people of color and say, man, I hate you so much that I would want to take your life. But there's a depth of hate in humanity. Like what trips that trigger? I just don't get it.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, and that's why, to me, I think, unfortunately, a lot of things are politically driven, and that's the reason why I'm trying to say, like, let's take this out of the political talk and out of the political arena, and just try to understand life, as people, as people. Instead of trying to say, all right, so what kind of political tag should I put on you? And that's, I mean, even in those terms, whether it's undocumented, whether it's refugee, whether it's asylum seeker, whether it's, I mean, there's lots of terms and there's lots of labels. And yet we're still going to say, like, you're a person. And so if you're a person and you've been put in front of us, are we going to ignore you, or are we going to try to figure out, some way in which we can help you? And that's the extent. I mean, so as individuals, we're going to have a more limited capacity of that help. Now, does it mean that we say, all right, so because I can't help all, I shouldn't help one? Does that make sense? No.
Yeah.
So it's like, and that's where, all right, so if we have somebody who's put in front of us, how are we going to help them?
And I think on a global stage, there are people who've been drawn in and really have a sense that their impact can take place in a broader way.
Mm-hmm.
And so to those people who have that platform, all I can do is say, hey, go cat, go.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my platform. It's not my arena. It's not my element. It's not my circle. It's not, on the flip side, to your point, you're, just smack dab right in the middle of it. And the context of the things that we've talked about is, what are you going to do when fate, and there could be many people who are listening who are like, yeah, that's not my context. Well, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
But does that stop the thought process of getting into the conversation about what is really driving this hatred?
Mm-hmm.
What is really driving, the thing that would push one human being to look at another race of human being,
yeah,
and be like, not only do I not like you, you not only make me angry, not only do I hate you, I want to take your life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's beyond my comprehension. So coming back to the beginning, this is a big bucket of what I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
Right.
How.
And I also don't, there's a lot, as we prefaced in the beginning of this episode, that's pretty much the existence of us. Like we don't know everything. And I don't know everything about the conflict of this. I don't know everything about the legal status of people. I don't know everything about, all the I don't know. But there are things that, we try to navigate as we have to instead of, trying to be able to refuse and then navigate later. So it's like, hey, if this is put in front of us, let's navigate it now. And then are we going to make all the right moves? Probably not. Rarely do.
Yeah.
But I think that being able to help partially here, doing some of this work, is saying, all right, so we'll learn from this so that we can also help later on in a bigger scale.
Yeah.
So that's the goal. Helping.
Yeah.
But I think, that's the reason why, we have talked about things on here that are political. The nationalism conversation, it was, and it's not, like we're not coming at it from politics, but what we do know is that it's political. It's the same thing. Like we're not going to shy away from a conversation that's political, but we also aren't going to just jump into things because it's political.
Yeah. That's not the intent,
right?
It's just so interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's where, so going back to the, that same kind of question that you're asking, like what leads somebody to say, like, not only does this person in front of me, like that I don't like you, but how does it get to a certain extent when you're also saying I wish that they didn't exist?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I've never felt that level ever. I may have said like I don't really want you to exist in my sphere, but I've never thought I really want you to stop existing.
Right.
And so I don't, and to me, I think that politics do get wrapped up in that. Because that's the goal. If you're going into war, you start to dehumanize people, which we've talked about in the past too. I have to dehumanize somebody in order to want them to not exist anymore.
Yeah.
And if I dehumanize them, then it makes it easier.
Yeah.
So, and that's what we do with, where there are people who are like, well, you're illegal. Well, according to who?
Yeah.
Your existence is illegal. Like, no, they exist, so therefore it's not illegal. Now, you may have, and there's, yes, the laws of our land, blah, 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 all of that. That gets into political conversation. But no person is illegally existing.
Right.
Yeah. But, yeah, so that's where we're at. It's a hard conversation, to be able to think about things that are new like that. How do we exist differently now? And I think that's where the conversation goes.
Well, and just awareness. I know that as we have had people who have come to the States in refugee status because their country's war-torn. There are many people of the Christian faith who've been involved in the grassroots work of English second language classes. Mm-hmm. And how that, they've seen firsthand the hardship that refugees have.
Right.
And, we've talked about the loss within a refugee's heart of recognizing that their homeland they'll never be able to return to.
Right.
And whether it's from, some warlord, dictator. We start talking about when we start talking about, gang-related incidences in South America, then you travel down this whole ladder spiral into why there is even the issue with cartel and drugs and gang related, and then it moves into the political scene of the chess game that's going on worldwide and globally. And for people to, put up a hand and say, whoa, we don't want their kind in our nation. And we're like, well, our politicians have been planting the seeds for this to occur. I mean, not for just years, but we're talking for decades.
Yeah.
And, and so then there's where you get caught in this contextual trap, or you get even paralyzed to the place of, for people of faith, is like, how do you work out what you say you believe? Mm-hmm. And, what are the words that you're going to speak to others and you're going to follow in regards for all of the sacredness of life?
Right.
And that's a pretty explosive phrase right there. Mm-hmm. That I just would toss that out. That when the message of, the sacredness of life is confined only to the unborn and not dealing with the people who are here already, So anyway,
then it's also weak theology.
Well, I mean,
just gonna put that out there.
Yeah. I think maybe I'll not get another dog just out of protest for how people treat other people. Why should I have a fur companion that is able to be in my life and bring me joy when I can't even treat other human beings with kindness? I don't know. I'm just rambling on at this point.
Well, it's a ponder. I mean, that is something to be able to consider. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like he always said on the Price is Right, don't forget to have your pets spayed and neutered.
It's true. Yeah. And then some of the animal rights people are like, "Oh, that's animal mutilation." I'm like, "No." I mean, I think it's a love for them that happens. I don't know. But I guess that's a whole nother conversation, and you're getting into PETA realms.
Well, we're not going to put that in one of the tags.
We are not going to do that. No.
Well, hey, folks.
Maybe some other time.
If you're caught up in the conundrum and you have any comments, make sure that you throw that into the comments, whether it's the podcast or the video YouTube part of that. Just know that as there is plenty of unrest in the world to go around, it doesn't mean you can't have rest.
Right. It's true.
And we're pretty confident that by this time in the podcast, Matt Handley has already fallen asleep.
Right. Sleep well.
Sleep well, my friend.
Oh, man.
Hashtag, I'm out.
All right. Well, it's good to be back with everybody, and we just jumped right into a, pretty sticky topic, I think, right now for some people, right? So
only if you're eating rice.
But welcome into the conversation, because that's what it is. We're, it's part of a conversation.
I call it, we're fumbling around to figure it out, and I don't know how to do that with shortening up any of those words without making it sound really super weird. So if you feel like we went in a circle,
we maybe did.
You're absolutely right.
We like circles. We like infinity symbols.
It is a sign but this will
is
not
the
end.
season that never ends.
It goes on, our friends. So while that does a little ear hole worm into your brain, fade off into the distant future. And remember, you're listening to us.